We're not backing out on our agreement here. We are bringing you another podcast, like we promise you, once a week. But we're going to talk about DeAndre Jordan this week, who actually did back out on his agreement with the Dallas Mavericks after verbally agreeing with Mark Cuban and Chandler Parsons that he would be coming to Dallas. Instead, he ended up going back to LA. We're going to talk about that in full detail, as well as some of the details that came out on that story. Also, Dez Bryant is saying he's willing to sit out games this year if he doesn't get the contract that he's seeking. Is he right for doing so? I know we talked about this a few weeks back, but we're going to question whether he's worth the money that he wants. Also, we're going to look into Jimbo Fisher banning his players from going to college bars. Is that really necessary, or is the attempt just futile? Also, last night we had the home run derby in baseball. Was the new format better, or was it worse for the derby and its enjoyment? Also, for our off-topic discussion this week, we're going to ask, why are sports so enticing? So we'll jump into the DeAndre Jordan discussion first off. So a lot of details came out recently. Ramona Shelburne and Tim McMahon came out with a very detailed story on the saga yesterday on ESPN. And you can go read that piece if you want to, but it was interesting, some of the things they came out with. According to a lot of the people near DeAndre Jordan, he's supposedly very impressionable, and that's why he was maybe taunted to go to Dallas at first, but then after thinking about it, he decided to go back to the Clippers. So was he right or wrong in your mind for backing out on his agreement?
Um, I mean, it's kind of a jerk move to do because he had verbally agreed and the Mavericks had planned everything around them actually getting DeAndre Jordan. But I mean, it happened, so they're just kind of left with that sitting ducks, basically. The Mavericks are, but I don't blame him. I mean, it's not like he was chasing the money or anything because DeAndre Jordan, his contract with the Clippers, although it says he's getting more money on paper due to taxes, he's actually getting, I think it was about $1.7 million less for going back to LA than he would have with staying in Dallas. But I mean, some people are acting like this is repulsive and this is just completely out of left field. I mean, but this isn't the first time this has happened. I mean, players in the past have backed out of their verbal agreements. I mean, I believe I want to say it was Steven Jackson. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure it was him. He backed out of a contract to stay in wherever he was at the time. And I mean, it happens. And I mean, I feel bad for Dallas, but uh, I mean, DeAndre Jordan wanted to go wherever DeAndre Jordan wanted to go, and he realized he wanted to stay in LA.
Yeah, it's it's interesting because I think he was wrong for turning his back on his word. As a man, when you verbally agree, when you shake hands with someone saying you'll do something, I firmly believe that you should end up doing it. But this is different in a little bit of a way because it's such a huge life decision for him. It's it's really going to define who he is after the end of his career, really as he moves on in his life after the NBA. So, if you really feel like it's the wrong decision in your gut, how can you really fault a guy for maybe rethinking things? Because you don't want to be miserable for the next 4 years of your life in Dallas if that's really where you don't want to be. So I think this all goes back to how I said he's been very impressionable. He's enticed by a lot of different things. I know Mark Cuban and Chandler Parsons went full force trying to bring DeAndre to Dallas, and it's kind of like he fell under their spell. I know Parsons led an entourage type group where he took them out to nightclubs and went to bars and everything, and they just hung out for like a week, couple of weeks straight before DeAndre made it his decision to go to Dallas. So in a way, I think what he did was wrong initially. I think he really should have just thought it over more instead of making that verbal agreement so soon. So it's I don't know. It's hard to fault him though because you don't want him to look back while he's in Dallas and say, "What if? What could have been in Los Angeles?"
I feel exactly like you do, Hayes. Like, I think it was wrong for him to do what he did and back out of a commitment. But we can't really fault him because I feel he made the right decision business wise and in his career because he wasn't. It was obvious that he wasn't going to thrive in Dallas because even though we kind of disagree whether he's worth that type of money, he's not going to be a franchise player and he's not going to be a top dog in an organization. And I mean, he can only get better with the Clippers. And I just think I would have seen his career just kind of tank in Dallas, dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I feel like in Dallas he wouldn't have been as capable of doing what he did in Los Angeles. And I also don't think he would have been going to a team that's as good as you saw. The Clippers were good last year; they just weren't good in the playoffs. So I think it's the right. He made the right decision as well. But I think when he was going to make that decision, if there was even a shred of doubt that, hey, maybe this isn't what I want to do, he should have waited on saying to the Mavericks, "I'm going to sign with you guys. I'm going to go to Dallas." Because if he even doubted himself, he should have waited to make sure that's exactly what he wanted to do and that he was 100% on board with his decision before he actually gave a verbal agreement to join the team.
Yep.
Okay, I want to take you guys back 1 week before, or not 1 week before the news broke, but 1 week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, when we recorded our last podcast, and every one of you were saying that this is the right move for DeAndre. The Mavericks are a way better team. Him going there than he could have been at LA. And now I see once DeAndre flips his decision and goes back to the Clippers, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, right choice." I mean, the Clippers were obviously a better team in the first place. I mean, you just gotta.
I wasn't on that podcast.
You were
I wasn't
not,
on
so
that
I give you
podcast
credit.
last week, and
But
I would have said
Disclaimer here, I was the one guy who was kind of against DeAndre Jordan in the
no,
first
you were
place.
against his contract of
Yeah,
anything, if anything.
and I never thought he'd be good in Dallas in the first place. So,
I still stand by that he would have been he would have been the same if not better in Dallas because it's very similar situations. I mean, he's not him being in LA and him being in Dallas. I don't know which one would be better. I'm not saying him in LA would be. I'm not saying him in the Mavericks would be. I'm saying he's the same player in LA and in Dallas.
Okay, the argument that was said on the last podcast was whether the Mavs were making the right decision and going after DeAndre Jordan for that type of money. I never said that he was going to be a better player in Dallas because that's just completely not true. He would be the exact same player, but his offense is perfect for the Clippers right now.
All right, I'll listen back to the last podcast and prove that I'm right.
I remember Nick. I do remember Nick saying that he thought his scoring would increase, though. I do remember him saying that because we made an agreement there where you said
No, I think what you're confused.
if he didn't score 15 points or more per game, he'd be shocked. That's what I remember Nick saying. I don't know if he necessarily
Actually, what
said.
I'm think you're confusing the situation is last week you thought DeAndre was averaging like 9 points a game when in actuality he was averaging like what 15
No, no, no. He's
or
averaging
11?
like 11.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just
no,
completely undercut.
no, no, no. I thought it was 10 or 11. I never said 9. But
No,
anyway, let's not get into this whole DeAndre Jordan dispute again. But let's look at the Mavericks for a second, just from their perspective. They got completely shafted in this
I mean
scenario. They got
look at it. Their top target right now is JaVale McGee.
no, dude.
Yeah, I
They
mean
thought
they lost out on Tyson Chandler, Robin Lopez, Jordan Hill. I mean they lost out on everybody because of Jordan's decision.
Mark Cuban was quote ecstatic for Zaza Pachulia.
Oh, please.
They signed Zaza?
They traded
No, they
for
traded the
Zaza,
second-round pick for him.
and he was ecstatic, so to
I
speak,
love Zaza. I'm
for
sorry.
Zaza
Ever since Zaza
Pachulia.
was on the Hawks, I've just always followed his progress, even when he was on the Bucks. He's one of my favorite players.
I mean, going from going from DeAndre Jordan to Zaza Pachulia.
Dude, the Mavericks are going to be legit next year.
I mean, that
Oh man.
uh,
Oh, you kill me. You kill me.
They're not going to be legit. They're going to be the same as always, a 6, 7, 8 seed.
I mean, that's like going
What the
from
Mavericks are.
that's like saying, "Hey, you want to eat steak for dinner, or you want some Brussels sprouts?" That's pretty much that's a way of putting it. I mean,
I
Zaza
love Brussels
Pachulia
sprouts.
is the
What's wrong
Brussels
with Brussels
sprouts
sprouts, man?
of dinners.
Anyway, well, enough of comparing food. This isn't Top Chef. Let's get
No,
back to free agency here. Well, DeAndre Jordan here for a second.
it's clear he didn't want to be the man though, because he
I
was.
don't think you can make a judgment on that. A, not knowing him. B, not knowing his personality, which I guess would be part of A, but I needed a B because I said A, so I just said that anyway. But I mean, you don't. I mean, it comes down to you don't know the guy. You don't know what he thinks. You don't know if he wants to be the number one guy. I'm sure everybody wants to be the number one guy, and I know not everybody wants to be the number one guy. It's just a figure
Wait,
of
you
speech.
just said. Okay.
At least from the report that came out, the report from ESPN from Ramona Shelburne and Tim McMahon, he's been working with John Lucas back at home in Houston, and he went into Lucas's gym after he agreed verbally with the Mavericks, and DeAndre was concerned. He was having second thoughts on the whole idea. And John Lucas was telling him, you're going to have to be the man now. You're going to have to learn post moves and just become so much better offensively. And that's where that whole idea comes in, where I'm not really sure if he wanted to be the man. That was kind of one of
All
those
right,
things that
I have
held
a
him back.
problem with people saying that about the Mavericks. As long as Dirk is there, nobody is going to be the man other than Dirk.
Well, the man into the future.
Okay, I can see that. I can
The
see
man into
that.
the
But
future.
saying that he's going to be the man now is a little extreme because Dirk Nowitzki's still there.
It's a LaMarcus Aldridge, Tim Duncan
I understand.
kind of
I
idea.
understand.
Yeah. But
I think we can all agree that the expectations that have built up around him throughout this free agency, he could have never lived up to those if he went to Dallas.
no, that's what I've been trying to say
definitely
this
not.
whole time.
I don't know. It's not happening, so we can't judge it.
But so none of you really have an issue with him going back to Los Angeles?
I mean, he's his own person. He can make his own decisions.
Yeah, I mean,
No.
I'm not disappointed with. I'm not like upset about him choosing the Clippers over the Mavs. Just that, I mean, he kind of left the Mavs hanging.
I think the best thing to come out of this whole situation is that one Mavs fan yelling at the camera for 3.5 minutes.
That was fantastic. Oh my gosh. It was. Have you seen? Okay, if you go onto his channel, he had another video earlier that day when it wasn't official yet, but he was driving in his car and he was basically screaming and yelling, basically in the same manner of how DeAndre Jordan better not back out on us and things of that nature. What he said one quote. I want to say it was, oh, I forget, but it was hilarious. Go check it out. I don't know his channel. I'll have to look it up again, but the guy's a nutcase. The guy's kind of a nutcase. It's funny though. But I don't know. Do you guys have anything else to say about DeAndre Jordan?
Let's see what the future holds.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny how Chris Paul and the whole crew came back after he left, and before he left, they had like no interest in him. They were just let him leave. Basically, they didn't really think he would leave, or they didn't really care about him.
I don't think that was the case.
I don't agree with that either.
Well, none of them even showed up to a meeting to try and bring him back to Los Angeles.
Because
But
Well,
then
they
all of a
had an
sudden
emotional
after he left,
war.
the whole team came and stayed at his house and played video games and cards.
because, and I know this is, I'm just assuming right now, and I know it's probably not right. I bet most of them weren't thinking that DeAndre was going to leave. They thought, oh, DeAndre's free agent, so what? He's going to re-sign with us, blah, blah, blah. And then they hear he has a verbal agreement with the Mavs, and they're like, okay, hold on, we're not letting this happen. Then they go in and do their recruiting situation that they did.
Because they're the ones who truly know him best, and they
Mhm.
obviously didn't think that was his character. They never that it kind of showed that they never even saw this coming to begin with. Like they didn't
But
even feel like that was a realm of possibility for them.
so it takes him leaving to actually put on the
Again, we 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 don't know the exact situation, but what it looks to be is that they were expecting it to be an easy win for them because just send in Doc to go say, "Hey, just sign this contract here. We know you're coming back." And then once
Bombshell.
yeah, once he said, "You know what? No, I'm going to go to the Mavericks." They're like, "Okay, hold up now." And then they met with him. Chris Paul rode the banana boat in, and they locked him in the door and then interrogated him for X amount of hours about why you should come back to LA. And then he's like, you know what, I'm coming back, and then signed the contract the other day.
Well, it doesn't make sense though because even
Makes
people
perfect
on the
sense.
outside thought Dallas was a realm. It was in the realm of possibilities. I mean, honestly, we thought they were the front runner for a little while. So if you're Chris Paul, why are you spending a trip on a banana boat with Dwayne Wade, Carmelo, and LeBron when the future of your team is hanging,
No,
with
nobody knows.
one
But they
Nobody
person?
never.
knows what was going through their heads. I mean, it just comes down to that. Your view of it is, hey, it's obvious that he was going to go somewhere, and then my view and Nick's view is, hey, it's obvious he wasn't going to go anywhere because they know him. We don't know the situation. That's what it comes down to.
And those are all what you're trying to say. Like the reports about Dallas being front runners, the players aren't glued to ESPN like we are. They don't listen to that. They don't. They take kind of with like a grain of salt. Like they.
I I can agree with that. I can agree with that, but well, obviously they didn't know him well enough. I mean,
I mean, view view it
like
as this. Like,
Chandler
say
Parsons.
Hayes, say like say you hear Nick's thinking about Nick's a free agent in the sports analytic world. He's thinking about, you know what, I'm gonna go sign this sports blog over here.com, and you're thinking, no, I mean, I know Nick, he's not gonna do this, and then you hear this inclination like he's verbally agreed, and then you're like, okay, hold up, then you go talk to him and then try to get him back to Youngspeak.
See,
It's that same situation.
from my perspective though, is if he's already verbally agreed, then I've already lost the battle. That's not really the start for me to go pitch him.
That's just rolling over and showing your belly. That's just giving up.
But
You still
if
got
that's
to
a
talk to
man's
him.
word though, if you verbally agree with somebody, then
We
that's just
obviously
dirty
see that
business
not
to.
everybody's word means anything with this DeAndre Jordan situation. Anybody can be persuaded any way.
So, you think it's okay for a team after he's already agreed with another team to just go ahead and start their pitch and say, "Wait, we want you back."
Yeah, I don't see
It's
what your problem is with this. It's desperation.
I
it's
I agree. I agree with what Christopher's saying. I
but
think
you're
it's. I think most teams in this position would have done the exact same thing
Hmm.
because they think he's not going to leave. They really believe that he will resign with them, even though he's threatened not to. And then he's actually saying, "Oh, I am going to go to this other team," and that's kind of their wake up call. Where like, wait, maybe we should do something about it then.
if
Like I personally, if I was DeAndre Jordan, would be offended the Clippers didn't take me seriously, and I might have followed through and signed with the Mavericks because
well,
it took actually believing it, actually seeing that he was going to another team for them to really be like, oh, wait, we do need him. He is important to us.
well, exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. If you know DeAndre Jordan is impressionable, and you've got Mark Cuban and Chandler Parsons doing everything in their power to bring him to Dallas, and you're Los Angeles, you have no concerns that he could possibly leave. Like, okay, going back to the Nick scenario, if Nick is a free agent and he's looking at joining other sports blogs, I don't care if I think he's coming back. I'm gonna go talk to him and persuade him to come back here to Youngspeak
And
Sports.
you don't think the Clippers did that beforehand? In fact, they actually did do that. And then DeAndre's like, you know what? I'm thinking I'm gonna go to
Maybe the
Dallas. I'm
maybe
gonna make
the
a verbal agreement. Nothing's written in stone. And then they're like, hold up now.
maybe the
This isn't
Clippers front
happening. You're coming
office.
back to us, and here's why. And you love us. And Nick, don't go to that sports blog over there. Stay with Youngspeak.
Maybe the Clippers front office, but not the players. I mean, like Ben said,
It's a
like Ben
last
said,
resort
like Ben
effort.
said, they're not showing him the respect that they feel like they want him back on their team.
No, they're showing him respect by saying, "Hey, we don't need to throw all of this at you to get you to come back to here. We know you love it here, and we know that you know that we love." I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but you get what I'm saying.
I
But
just,
it's like
I
it's
feel
more.
like I feel like it's a little bit of a
I think it's
stretch to say that though, because
yeah.
I because
How can we assume that they just thought, okay, he's coming
How
back?
can you assume that they
Okay,
didn't?
I think
We're
we
Because
can
if
just
all.
somebody
assuming in
is
the situation. Nobody knows what's right.
even if
I
somebody's thinking
Nobody's in the
about
wrong here. Nobody's in the right here. We're all in the
take
middle.
take LeBron James's example for a second here. When he was leaving, when he was a free agent and ended up going back to Cleveland, you don't think Dwayne Wade tried to bring him back to Miami?
Because that wasn't a verbal agreement. That
No,
was a
prior.
written
I'm
contract.
talking prior. Like
You
when
don't think
LeBron
Dwayne
James
Wade
was
met with
still.
him beforehand?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. During the whole process, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh,
This is
everybody's
a
trying to
different
bring
situation.
him back to Miami.
You're talking
That's
about a
because
verbal agreement and a you're trying to compare a verbal agreement with a written agreement, which are two different things.
I'm just talking about
You
the
can't go back on a
process.
written. You can go back on a verbal,
I'm talking about the
depending on what type
process.
of person you are.
I'm talking about the process before any kind of agreement of any sort. We're talking about the free agent process when they're looking at the different teams and LeBron James is considering his options. If you are a player on that team, you're talking to LeBron James and you are persuading him,
but
doing whatever in your power to bring him back to Miami. If the
But that would
Clippers
be because you
players,
probably knew that he was actually thinking about leaving. I think it's safe to say because we really don't know what actually went on because we can't really judge that. But we can all say that his teammates were the ones that knew him best, and they
That
knew what he was thinking.
I mean, they've been around DeAndre for what, 5 years now, or 4 years now, whatever, however long he's been in the league. You're around a guy a whole 4 years straight. You get to know him pretty well. So I mean, I'm agreeing with Nick in this situation.
I don't I don't care how well you know him though. If you think he's even considering in any way of leaving Los Angeles, then if you really want him back, then you got to show him that respect.
We've reached a stalemate. Nobody's going to agree with anybody. Let's
Yeah,
just move
we'll
on to
just
Dez
have to
Bryant.
we'll just have to agree to disagree there.
In the
But
comments, you tell us why Hayes is wrong.
or you back me up here and agree with me that if you're a player, that you should try to bring somebody back. But anyway, we'll go into Dez Bryant here. He's saying he's willing to sit out games if he doesn't receive the long-term contract that he is seeking. Supposedly, he's trying to sign a contract worth Calvin Johnson type money or even more. Johnson received an 8-year, $132 million deal, which is about 16.5 million per year. No, I don't think Dez is going to get that many years. That would be pretty strange. But I threw out this question yesterday or today on Twitter. If you had to pay Dez Bryant 5 years, $85 million with 45 million guaranteed, do you pay him or do you let him walk?
You absolutely pay him.
Yeah,
He is worth that money.
no doubt.
He is one of the top, I'd say top three receivers in this league. Calvin being number
Mm,
one, I'd put Dez at number two, and then Demarius Thomas.
no, you're
What?
wrong there.
We're
But
gonna have to
you're
disagree
wrong
here
there.
again. We're gonna have to disagree here again.
You're wrong. Demarius Thomas, he's good. I won't take that away from him. But Peyton Manning made him. He was not a top 5 receiver before Peyton Manning got there.
But here's the thing: he was actually a. He may not have been top 5, but he was top 7, top 10 in the league at. I think he was 23 or 22 at the time. Which, if you're that good at that young, if you're that young and that good, I mean, that just says a whole lot about you. And he's progressed since then. Sure, Peyton Manning had a lot to do with it. He still, I mean, Demaryius Thomas is still catching the ball, but again, you don't see Emmanuel Sanders being considered the number 4 receiver. I mean, sure, he has a great quarterback throwing to him, but no, I was about to say so does Dez, but then I remembered it's Tony Romo.
I kind of agree with Ben here. I mean, as much as I love Demaryius Thomas, let's just say we take Peyton Manning out of that picture and put in an average quarterback.
Put in Tim Tebow. That's who he had before.
But he was decent with Tim Tebow
even. Tebow's a stretch. But let's say a decent quarterback. Let's throw in like an Andy Dalton. Would he still be number 3?
Who would you put ahead of him? Who would you put ahead of him?
I would
Julio?
put Jordy Nelson. My man,
Antonio
Jordy
Brown.
Nelson. Jordy Nelson ahead of and Antonio Brown.
I'll put Antonio Brown above Jordy Nelson because I mean Aaron Rodgers is probably, you could argue, he's the best quarterback.
Yeah, but Jordy was doing it. Jordy's been doing it consistently. Like if you watch Jordy Nelson, he controls his body just as good as anyone in the league. Like he'll make crazy sideline.
I think
he's been doing it
Jordy Nelson with the best
listen to me, keeping toes inbounds.
You're contradicting yourself.
He does it just as well as anyone.
Listen to me. Jordy Nelson is not getting offered a $5 million, $85 million, 5-year, $85 million contract, and he's sitting out. We're talking about.
I'm not saying he's better than Dez Bryant.
No, we're talking about Demaryius Thomas versus Jordy Nelson. We're completely off in right field right now. Is Dez Bryant worth it? Is he bluffing? What do you say?
All right, let me jump in here.
He's bluffing, but he's definitely worth it. Yeah.
I think he's bluffing, but I don't think he's worth it. What? It's not against Dez as a player. I think Dez is probably the best receiver in the league right now.
Whoa.
Who do you take over
Calvin
Dez?
Johnson.
Arguably, Calvin Johnson's injured too much. He's also...
Calvin Johnson's only been injured this year.
What? This year, he's had injury concerns the past 2 or 3 years. Have you seen his knees? Have you heard about his knee issues?
Have you seen his stats? Have you seen his quarterback?
Matthew Stafford? What does that have to do with it?
Stafford's not a good quarterback by anybody's standards.
What are you talking about? Matthew Stafford?
That's so not true.
That is not true at all.
That is not true at all.
I'll give you credit. I may have been wrong at putting Demaryius at number 3, but as your point of why Demaryius is good is the same reason as why you're saying Matthew Stafford is good. Calvin Johnson is making Matthew Stafford. There's no way. Take Calvin Johnson out of the equation. What do you have? Matthew Stafford throwing it to Golden.
The Lions are a terrible team, though. He got drafted to a team with no offensive line. Like, it's not his fault. He has to throw the ball to Calvin because who else is going to catch it? Like, they have no running game. You can't put that on Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford threw for over 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns.
Okay,
in 2011.
Those were incredible stats, but granted, he threw 55 times a game.
Yeah, okay. That's not really our argument here. I mean, they both make each other. I think there's a case for both.
Matthew Stafford is incredibly overrated.
That's true. Look at how Calvin Johnson.
But we're comparing Dez Bryant to Calvin Johnson. You can't really use the quarterbacks because they're both. In my opinion, they're both slightly overrated. Tony Romo probably more.
Overrating Tony Romo at this point. I'm pretty sure everybody's on the bandwagon that he is terrible.
But I'm just saying they're not elite quarterbacks, so you can't really say, "Oh, this one." I mean, you can't differentiate between the two.
We might have to get into that discussion next week, but let me tell you why I don't think Dez Bryant is worth the money. First, it's about value in the NFL with the salary cap. Quarterbacks make receivers. That's just how it is. It's a quarterback-driven league. Wide receivers don't make quarterbacks. Calvin Johnson didn't make Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford
That's true.
was still a very good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. We'll leave it there. Quarterbacks rule the NFL. That's just how it is.
Yeah, there's no doubting that.
Let's look at the top 10 contracts for wide receivers last year. This is against the cap. Granted, I know contracts are structured differently with the numbers per year, but this is how teams were affected by the top 10 salary cap hits for wide receivers last year. Here are the top 10 wide receivers. Mike Wallace, the Dolphins.
Ugh.
He didn't help them. Andre
Not at all.
Johnson, the Texans.
You're not going to say
They
the
didn't make
amount.
the playoffs. Calvin Johnson of the Lions. They ended up making the playoffs. Vincent Jackson, the worst team in the league. Dwayne Bowe.
No.
Did not score a touchdown. Pierre Garçon. Okay.
Never mention that name again. Never mention that name again, Dwayne Bowe.
Brandon Marshall, Larry Fitzgerald, Marquise Colston, and Wes Welker. Very few of those teams actually made the playoffs or went far into the playoffs.
But I don't think.
And look at how much
you
those. Look at how much.
Okay, look. You're comparing
You can't put.
You're not comparing these wide receivers' ability. You're comparing their contracts.
Yeah, but look
You're
at
saying
how much
you're saying that you're saying the wide receivers with the biggest contracts end up being the worst wide receivers. What if Dez gets a big contract, that's not automatically going to make him bad.
No, I think you're misunderstanding my point here. Okay, Andre Johnson's a good wide receiver. Calvin Johnson, probably the best wide receiver in the league. How much did he do for the Lions last year?
Everything. He was their offense.
He was not their offense last year. Their defense made them that good.
Their defense
and Ndamukong Suh.
You asked what did it do
defense.
for their offense. You're not asking what did Calvin Johnson do for their defense.
What? Oh. Explain to me how
why would he be playing defense?
Explain to me how a wide receiver leads a team to a Super Bowl.
I'm just
Dez Bryant,
Jerry Rice.
If you give him,
We
Dez
just said that at
Bryant's
the
not
same
Jerry
time,
Rice. Dez Bryant isn't Jerry Rice.
Jerry Rice had Joe Montana
And Jerry Rice
Steve
had,
Young.
yeah, exactly.
So.
Two of the best quarterbacks. But you'd be paying Dez Bryant $85 million, which is approximately like $25 million more than anybody else other than Calvin Johnson. It really cap straps the Dallas Cowboys. And wide receivers are replaceable in the NFL. I'm not saying Dez Bryant. I'm not saying you're going to find another Dez Bryant. I'm not trying to say that. But when you have Tony Romo and that offensive line, you can relegate the contract and the cap that you're giving to Dez Bryant in different areas of your team that can strengthen it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think this is what the Cowboys are looking at it as. Okay, we lost our number one producer on offense with DeMarco Murray. We've got to keep Dez at this point at all costs.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. They have to. And I mean, I see what Hayes is coming at because Hayes is saying just that. I'll somewhat agree with him saying that he's probably not going to get the full. You're not going to get the full value that the contract is for him. Like he's not going to bring the value that a $16.5 million to the cap. He's not going to produce that. But I mean, they made the choice. They let DeMarco walk, and they made the choice saying Dez is our guy. They have to resign him. They can't let him walk.
I agree with that, and I think it comes down to the cap concerns from other players that the Cowboys are going to have. Like, who was it? Tyrone Smith, wasn't it? They just signed to like $110 million, something crazy like that.
They still have Tony Romo for a big contract as well.
Like, exactly. So, and we already know they don't have a running back. I mean, Darren McFadden, he's going to play what? 2 games, 3 games at most, get injured, out for the rest of the season. That's pretty much inevitable. It's always what happens with him.
They have
and
Randall as
they didn't
well.
draft the running back.
Yeah, they're really high.
They're going, but they're going. The
I think
point is that they're going to have to find a.
it's
I'm not saying
It's-
I wouldn't say that's true at all because with their offensive line, all they need is
They're not going to have that money.
an average running back. I think they'll have a decent running game this year only because of their offensive line.
well, but my goodness, you could throw anybody back there behind that line.
I don't think you can throw Steven Jackson back there, no. As
I
a
think you
Falcons
could.
fan.
I think we could throw Christopher back there, and he'd
No.
still get like 4 yards per
Okay,
play.
first off, I'm never going to be in a football uniform ever again. It's not happening. So that's already how it's impossible. B, I'm under whatever. Never mind. I'd get into why you're wrong here too, but I mean it's obvious.
All right, we could we could put Frank Gore back there.
Herschel Walker.
Frank Gore.
People give
Herschel Walker.
People give Frank Gore too much crap. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
Too much crap. I don't think he gets enough.
he's not as bad as what people say he is. I mean,
He was great. He was a great running back, but he's not
in his
anymore.
prime.
He's gotten I do agree. He's gotten too much crap, but even as a diehard Colts fan, made the wrong decision going to the Colts. He's not going to do anything in Indiana.
I mean, he's going to be like Steven Jackson in Atlanta.
Exactly. The Colts will never have a running game.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Andrew Luck, but for the Cowboys' sake, I just don't think you value-wise. Maybe I'm just big on the value-wise type thing here with salary cap. I think you need to put your money where you get
buck.
You want exactly, yes. You want the most bang for your buck. You want to put your money where you're going to get the most value in it. And I feel like wide receivers, you can go out. There's a lot of them out there that can maybe not completely make up for Dez Bryant's effect. You're not going to find someone else like that, but you can put together 2 or 3 guys. You can put together a core, a rotation that can be good enough to win a Super Bowl when you have Tony Romo, that offensive line, and hopefully an improved defense.
I don't know about that though, because it's really hard to find wide receivers who are true game changers, who you know that if you throw the ball to them with the game on the line, they're going to catch it. And they're going to make that amazing catch and keep their feet in bounds, control their body, hold on to it as they go to the ground. Like all that you have to think about when they're trying to make that game-winning catch. And it goes back to the Green Bay playoff game. Was it a catch?
Technically, I was about to say,
things like that.
Dez Bryant didn't come down with it.
It doesn't matter. That's water under the bridge at this point.
It is, but I guess we'll just have to.
That's one of those plays that'll be talked about forever as to whether or not it was, what could have been.
See, initially what I thought you were talking about was back in 2010 or 11 in like the NFC Championship game or one of the playoff games where it was a jump ball basically in the end zone and they had to decide whether it was a pick or a touchdown between the Packers and the Seahawks.
That wasn't
the Seahawks-Packers game.
That wasn't a playoff game. That was a Thursday. No,
that was the opening. That was week 1. Yeah, wasn't it?
That was week 1. Okay.
It must have been they had the replacement refs. They had the replacement refs in there.
Because and they called it a catch, wasn't it, when it was a pick?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
It was very early in the season, yeah. But I guess
who was on the receiving end? Jordy Nelson. But you know what? I'm gonna write. You know what? That's my next article. I'm gonna write a whole article as to why Jordy Nelson is the most underrated receiver in the league.
What?
Well, is anybody underrating him?
A ton of people underrated him.
Well, you know why he's underrated. Let's be real.
He's not underrated. He's just not talked about.
He's underrated. He's not talked about. That's kind of why he's underrated.
He's not underrated.
Yeah,
he's underrated.
When you have,
everybody agrees he's a good receiver. Nobody talks about him though.
Nobody considers him.
But when you have the discussion, like who's your top 5, top 10 receivers in the NFL, nobody ever goes and says, "Oh, Jordy Nelson, I'd put him up there."
Because he's not.
He is.
He's perfectly rated.
Okay,
where would you rate him?
Anyone who's actually has any sense about the NFL, any NFL knowledge, he would be in their top 10 wide receivers. No one would leave him out.
Okay, let's just get this discussion over with quickly. Go through your top 10 receivers really quickly.
Right now?
Yes, just try to
That's
God,
off the top of your head. Who would be your top 5,
I've
top
got
10?
to look up some names. Jeez.
You
Okay,
can't
I got.
think.
I'll give you number
Or
one. Number one, Calvin Johnson, but he could easily somebody could step up and overtake that. I'll give number one. Number two, I would put Dez Bryant. I would say Dez Bryant is definitely proven he can be. Um, three, Antonio Brown. Four, four. I'll give you the lofty assumption. Jordy Nelson is number four. Number five, Julio. Number six. Ooh, I'm running out of names here. Number six,
you haven't said Demaryius yet.
Demaryius. Yeah, then I'll put Demaryius there because Demaryius is number six. Number seven.
Antonio Brown.
I'm trying
have
to
you said
think.
He
No,
said
he said
Antonio.
I saw it.
Three.
He's third.
Odell Beckham Jr.
I said Antonio. No, overrated.
Okay, look, people think of him as just the catch. He's actually a very talented wide receiver. What he did for the Giants this year, he's going to be the next Calvin Johnson, I'm telling you.
Ooh.
People-
That's pretty high.
I think it's fair to say he'll be
He's-
top 5 to top 10 in the future, but I
I
He's
agree
going to
with
be
Chris.
the
that he's
number
gonna
one
be great.
receiver come 5 years from now.
think Mike Evans has a better chance of doing that than Odell Beckham Jr.
I would
That's
say Odell
just 'cause-
Beckham.
Mike Evans depends on how well Jameis Winston does, though.
Well,
AJ
you
Green.
know,
AJ Green.
AJ Green, that's who I was. I put AJ up there when healthy. Actually, I'd put him 5 maybe at when healthy. AJ Green is definitely in my top 5.
Kelvin Benjamin.
Calvin Benjamin.
9 or 10.
that's
Calvin Benjamin.
trust me,
Yeah.
I love Benji, but he's not that high yet because of his drops. Not yet,
He
not
shares
yet.
my name though.
Not yet.
I just
I
have,
have
to
to rate
who 9 or 10 would be.
Would you put Larry Fitzgerald up there?
He's just
Okay, Larry
I'm saying
Fitzgerald.
he's just too
Larry
old
Fitzgerald
to be
was
outside.
Calvin Johnson before Calvin Johnson was Calvin Johnson.
I mean, yeah, somebody has to be the number one receiver.
I agree
in
with
the
that.
league.
But that's what I'm saying. Larry Fitzgerald was Calvin Johnson before Calvin Johnson was Calvin Johnson.
Calvin Johnson hasn't been the number one receiver
Okay,
for the past
they're
20
actually
years.
two completely different wide receivers. Okay, let's just say Larry Fitzgerald was the past decade's number one receiver.
hmm
Like,
From
just-
2000 to 2009.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
say
Honey
Randy
Ford.
Moss. Randy Moss was pretty
And Randy
was
Moss.
up there.
Yeah.
Randy Moss is the best, not best of all time, probably number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
Jerry Rice.
Straight cash, homie.
Oh, I don't know. There's some big names up there. Randy Moss, number 2.
Yeah, he's close.
He's
up there.
up there. He's cool.
I agree with that.
How have we gotten
All right,
this?
go ahead, Christopher. Go ahead, Christopher. Your list. Let's go through this quickly. Your list.
No particular order.
What? No particular
what's the-
order.
What's the point of doing a top 10 if it's not in order?
Fine. Whatever. Calvin number 1. I'd put Dez at 2, just cause he's Dez. 3. Who would I put at 3? AJ Green. I want to say would be a solid number 3.
I agree
Mary's
with that.
4. Jordy at 5.
Dude, come on.
Six.
Antonio Brown?
6. Julio. 7. Antonio.
Oh. Oh.
You really think Antonio Brown's better than Julio? Better than Jordy? Better than
so
Demaryius?
disrespectful, man. That's just. Don't underrate him because he's short.
Just because Antonio Brown kicked a punter in the
Jordy
face
Nelson?
doesn't mean he's the best wide receiver.
Don't
I forgot
underestimate
about
him because he's short. Come on.
Know how tall he is?
He is
Number
the
7.
best.
Nobody's underestimating
7.
because he's short.
He's number 7.
Well, that's because everybody else on that list is like 6'4" or taller.
Because that's what it makes.
Or Antonio Brown, who led the league in
Jordy's
receptions
not 6'4".
and probably yards. I think
6'1".
yards. Jordy's, I don't know. You put Jordy up there before him?
Yeah, I think it was one spot before him.
Okay. Yeah, Jordy's like six.
At 7,
6'2".
3 more names. I don't know. T.Y. Hilton.
Thank you.
No.
Let's
I
Wrong.
appreciate it.
Nope.
let's cut that list off
No.
right there. All right, my turn.
T.Y. Hilton.
I will.
Wayne.
I'll still go with Calvin 1.
Marvin Harrison.
Yes.
I'll still go with Calvin 1 if he can overcome the injuries.
He was only
Antonio
injured
Brown.
this year.
No, he wasn't. Do you want me to go through his
He may
game
have sat out like
logs?
2 games 2 years ago. That doesn't mean he was injury prone that year.
He was like a game time decision, like half of the year.
And guess what? He still played.
Exactly.
But he played and
And
like
he
caught
put
like
up
2
touchdowns.
balls.
I don't
He
He
understand.
caught like 2 balls.
Season.
He was used
No.
as decoys some weeks.
What?
Yes,
You don't know. You don't know. You
I
don't
do know.
thing. We are off subject by a long shot at this point.
I know, but this is a good off topic. All right. I'll go Antonio Brown 2, Dez Bryant 3, but those are really close. I'm talking really close. 4, give me Julio. 5, I'll go Demarius. 6, Jordy Nelson. No, 6, AJ Green. 7, Jordy Nelson. 8, I like...
T.Y. Hilton.
No. I'm thinking 8, I might go with Alshon Jeffrey. Maybe.
I
I like Alshon Jeffrey or
You can make the case.
I think Alshon Jeffrey, Randall Cobb, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, those kind of guys are up in there. Brandon Marshall to a certain degree. Brandon Marshall's to a certain degree, but he's fallen off a little bit. But yeah, that'd be around my top 10-ish.
I wouldn't put Randall Cobb in there just because if there ever was a guy made by Aaron Rodgers, it was Randall Cobb.
He's good though. He's kind of like Antonio Brown to a
He's
certain
quick,
degree.
but you look at.
Nick, what do you think?
All right.
I mean,
let's go Calvin Johnson, Dez Bryant.
the only thing is that Randall Cobb would.
Okay.
What? What?
Antonio Brown. I'm
Wait,
gonna
is this in
go
order?
AJ
Yeah.
Green.
I think
Oh
he's
my
going
God.
10-1.
What?
No, he's going to 1 of 10.
All right.
Wait, what did you say? Number 1?
He said Calvin was 1.
Oh, I didn't
Antonio
hear.
Brown.
Yeah,
I just heard Antonio Brown and AJ Green. And I was just assuming okay,
same.
that must be 8 and 7 or 8 and 9.
Wow. Okay. All right. Where was I? Was that like 5?
You were at AJ Green, I think.
Yeah. Well, I have Demarius. Demarius before AJ Green because of AJ Green's injuries. Then that's what 6.
Yeah. I feel like there's a big drop off after
Yeah.
7.
Yeah, I want to throw in T.Y. Hilton pretty bad.
He was a good wide receiver the past 2 years.
He's a product of Andrew
Yeah,
Luck.
he's not a top tier. He's not an elite wide receiver by any means.
Oh
You
no,
sure
yeah,
hope that's
no.
my fantasy team.
Julio Jones. Wow. I don't know how I could leave him out.
Roddy White.
No.
I'll say this: Ty is one of the most valuable fantasy players you can have on your team. Just saying.
In a PPR
FYI,
league.
pro tip.
If you're playing PPR, he's definitely valuable, but
Not really. He's more of a burner.
no, he's not.
Yeah.
Who is he?
What would you
Who's
say,
getting?
Nick? I mean,
Huh?
you watched the Colts more than us, but I would say T.Y. Hilton is more of a deep threat.
I'd say
Huh.
he's both, but I'd say he gets the majority of the receptions there.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Andrew Luck kind of spreads it around pretty good.
All right, so I think that's
Woohoo!
Kobe Fleener, Dwayne Allen.
Reggie
Come on.
Wayne's still there.
No, he's
No, Reggie
No.
Wayne's gone. They released him.
Wait, no, not Reggie
Yeah,
Wayne. Who is that?
Andre-
Victor
Reggie
Cruz.
Wayne is not still
Andre
there.
Johnson.
What?
Victor Cruz. That's what I'm thinking of.
No.
Isn't he still there?
No.
Victor
Wait, no,
Cruz
no,
got
not
a
Victor
fucking
Cruz. Not
goal.
Victor Cruz. Hakeem Nicks.
Yes.
Victor Cruz
He
is on the
left.
Giants.
I know. I was thinking of Hakeem Nicks.
No, but
Hakeem Nicks is gone,
Hakeem
too.
Nicks is
didn't
gone now,
Do
though.
anything.
They got
I
Andre
know.
Johnson and Philip Dorsett.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Nick, you probably gonna stop at 7.
I think he's gonna
Huh?
spread the ball around a
Just
lot
move
more
on.
now.
Let's just move on. We've been on this too long.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move from the NFL and Dez Bryant. So we're gonna have to disagree there again. I don't think he's gonna be worth it, but you guys
Whatever.
would pay
You
him.
disagree with me on everything. Move on.
Yeah. Well, let's see if we disagree on this. Jimbo Fisher ended up banning all of his players from going to bars
Usually-
because of the recent incidents of DeAndre Johnson and Dalvin Cook punching women. So, yeah, punching women. So, is it necessary? Is it helpful? Or at the end of the day, is it futile?
Okay. For your weekly Florida State topic, I mean, I'd say this is a good idea on Jimbo's part. It just completely eliminates the chance of anything bad happening. I mean, will it be futile and nobody pays attention to it and they still do whatever they want? I mean, that just depends on how the Florida State about how the Seminoles athletes are, and we see how some of them are. But again, don't judge the few by the many. I mean, don't judge the many by the few. I said that means two completely different things with a slip of a tongue. But anyway, I mean, it's really helpful in this situation. Good for Jimbo.
Hmm. Well, I'm not just bringing up FSU stuff for no reason. They're in the news the past few weeks, and this is kind of interesting how it's coming out that he's not allowing them to go to bars, which in the first place, that probably should have been the agreement anyway. I mean, is there any really good thing coming out of going to bars? Especially in Tallahassee, if you've never been there. It's kind of a big party town. Not really a good place for an athlete to be hanging out. Like, why is Jimbo just now laying down the law on this?
Because it hasn't been a problem or this big of a problem in the past, probably.
Well, they've had their fair share of off-field issues with things of that nature,
That's
to
Jameis.
say the least.
But
Well, they
Yeah,
also
I
had
people-
P.J. Williams got a DUI / hit and run
yeah.
/
I
whatever.
forgot about that one.
Yeah,
But yeah.
how long have these incidents been going on?
a few years now.
Yeah, people are acting like this has been the case since Florida State began. I mean,
No, it's really just the past 2
Yeah.
years, and
And I think that's why he kind of made this decision. I mean, I'm glad he finally made it, but I mean, people are kind of over exaggerating, starting to look at Florida State like it's the culture now. Like that's who Florida State is, and that's just completely not true.
they're the new you.
As of right,
they're
right
not
now.
they're not the U of the '80s.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's
People are
go
starting to
with
look
that.
at it like it is, and I mean, he's kind of just fighting the symptoms right now.
In the end, though, I think it's a little futile because how can you monitor it exactly? Are you going to have like spies in the bars in Tallahassee?
Exactly.
Making sure these guys aren't going in there? Like, what's going to really stop them? The only way they're going to get caught is if they ended up doing something stupid in a bar. So, while I do feel like it's smart on Jimbo's move to at least try and enact this agreement upon the players, in the end, I don't know how much it's really going to actually help or affect anything.
I agree.
What do you think, Ben?
I kind of agree with what you were saying there. I don't think it's going to help or affect anything because the only way they would know for sure that they're not going out is that they're keeping spies, like you said, or whatever, people to watch and make sure. And they can't keep tabs on every single bar there. That's just not possible. So I don't think it will help anything. I don't think it will help anything. Maybe we'll see more incidents like this. Maybe we won't. I think it also just depends on the type of person that is the one to commit one of these crimes and whatnot. So I think it depends on too many things, and it won't help.
Do you think it's a bit unfair, considering these two guys ruin it for everybody?
No, it's damage control at this point. He's basically like saying, "All right, this has happened enough. I'm not gonna let this happen again." And it's a good message to it. It's almost a good message to send, like saying Jimbo saying, "Okay, I'm not going to put up with this anymore," even though he shouldn't have been putting up with it in the first place.
That's that's my issue there. Is like, why are these things occurring first and then you react to
Because you
it?
trust people. That's what it comes
He's gonna
down to.
trust 18-year-old kids.
He's been doing it for how long now? He's seen
Uh,
mess ups. He know it's gonna
please.
have. He knows it's gonna happen. I mean, if it happens enough, he's got to do something about it, and he did something about it. I don't fault him for that.
I'm just not sure why there's more of a foundational morality agreement contract where Jimbo is expecting these things of players. Why he's allowing them to go to bars really in the first place,
I think
and
he was allowing him in the first place.
yeah, that's
Yeah, I can
They're
why
18.
it's
guarantee.
They do stupid
I,
stuff.
I can guarantee he's discouraged it in the past.
Hmm.
that's it's a, I don't want to say it's a culture type of thing, but at this point
It's college.
it's not really a coincidence anymore. And I know we touched on this last week, and I said that this is kind of the territory you deal with when trying to recruit the top talent in the nation. Sometimes you take the risks, the necessary risks, to possibly get the reward of a great player. But why are these players maybe continuing in these ways time and time after again at Florida State in particular? And now finally they're just trying to come up with with a way to avoid it.
It's just it's just how the cards fell. I mean, all of these players happen to wind up in FSU. I mean, blame it on the scouting agent, I guess.
See, but can you? It's hard to really pinpoint it on just that or blame it on that in particular. As a Florida State University fan in general, not just a Florida State football fan, it's terrible for the university's image. It, as if Jameis Winston wasn't bad enough for their image and how that situation wasn't handled. Now I'm getting text messages from people all the time calling them the Seminole, the criminals, the thugs, the Florida State thugs, whatever you want to call
That I mean,
them.
this
And
this this kind of stuff happens, and unfortunately, it happened to happen to your team. This
but
is
it's
all gonna
but
pass.
but
This is
it's
all gonna pass.
I wish I could say it was one or two incidents though, but it's several incidents. I I just don't know if simply banning players from bars is enough. I think there needs to be some kind of Jimbo needs to enact some kind of cultural movement here where he's at least getting into the minds of these players and the hearts of these players, honestly, like Bobby Bowden did for so many years at Florida State. He built a reputable program, a respected program, and while Jimbo Fisher has done the same in his first few years on the field, I think he needs to work on cleaning up the locker room a little bit. Even if you're recruiting some guys with some baggage, I think maybe that's his job or his staff's job to a certain degree to help them mature as individuals. That's part of the college experience. That's part of why these players are going to college while they are growing as players. They're also supposed to be growing as individuals.
I mean, you don't think Jimbo's already doing that? I mean, sure, it may not. He may not be the best at doing it. I mean, just look at what's happened. I mean, he's not just simply saying, "All right, you can't go to bars now," and then sitting back down in his chair and then moving on with his life. He's going to, if he's an actual good coach and a good human being, he's actually going to do this. It's not like he's probably already started doing this, and this was just the first domino in the effect of what he's trying to do. And again, we're just assuming here, but this is a safe assumption that he's doing something to change it, and this was just the first step. I mean, he's not just going to sit back and let this happen.
I'm hoping so because it's becoming more of a trend than a coincidence right now, and that's just how it is. So you really want to see a change, and I hope it does come soon for Florida State's own good and the
Yeah, because
reputation
you're
of the
you're a fan of
university.
Florida State, and we have to talk about Florida State every week.
No, because this is a major topic for any radio show, any kind of podcast or blog.
True, whatever.
So Florida State's just in the news. It's just in the news for bad reasons right
It's
now.
been in the news for the past 2 months.
No, just the past few weeks. Nothing more than that. But we'll move on from that since you're so irate about us talking about it, and we'll move on
Thank
to
you.
a more favorable topic for you, the MLB's Home Run Derby last night. Todd Frazier ended up winning in the final round over Jock Peterson. New format, better or worse for the Derby?
Absolutely better. That was the most electric home run derby I have seen in a long time. I mean, usually when rule changes come about, people are all up in arms, but this is terrible. Just go back to how it was. But this rule change, I admit, at first I thought it was stupid. But after watching it, this was the best thing to happen to the home run derby. Thus, in the, I'd say in the last 10 years, 15 years, this rule change was amazing. I mean, not. I mean, you don't see players taking every pitch now. You see them swinging at everything. And the timeout was a good idea, 45-second timeout. And then you'd see players like Albert Pujols did it. Jock Peterson did it. After the timeout, they'd come out and hit four in a row or something like that. And I think there was one thing. I don't remember if it was Frazier or somebody else, but they hit like seven in a row. It might have been Fielder, but I'm not entirely sure. But this was one of the best home run derbies in a long time. I mean, not to say the home run derby's been bad recently, but this one was just great. And throw in the fact that the hometown hero won, and any time a ball was hit by Todd Frazier, the crowd would go insane. This was amazing to watch, and it's just fantastic.
I mean, I agree. I mean, this rule change has been the best thing for the home run derby, in my opinion, since the home run derby started. But it was finally, for the first time, it was actually entertaining. Because, I mean, for the last few years, I couldn't even sit through the first round, let alone the whole entire derby. And this year, I couldn't even take my eyes off of it. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it was fine. It was actually an event you wanted to watch.
Yeah, and it's it's refreshing to see a change actually for the better because I know last year in the NBA All Star weekend or break, they changed the dunk format, the dunk contest format, and it was terrible.
They've changed the dunk format every year for the past 4 years.
Well,
They're still trying to find a way to make it work. And I'm just saying, hey, how about this? Get the stars in there that want to be in there. Change it back to how it was back when Vince Carter was going at it. And then just see what happens. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But hey, you don't fix what ain't broken, basically.
I'm not sure we'll ever reach that platform again, though, just because of the way.
Have Levine in there, have Wiggins in there. Sure, those are rookies and kind of counterintuitive to my point. But then also throw in the likes of, well, LeBron is a bit past at this point. Throw in the likes of Russell Westbrook, maybe. Or
LeBron doesn't want to do it, though. It's not like it's.
That's
not
why I
like
said
he
it's kind
has-
of past his time. He's like, what, 31 now? I don't think he's
30.
going to be in it.
He's
Yeah.
29.
No, he's 30.
He's 30 or 31.
He's 30.
I'm trying to think of a fourth guy you could throw in there.
You could put
Kyle Korver, put him in there.
Well, Paul George is pretty good.
What?
Paul George would be an amazing.
John Wall was really good too.
No, he wasn't. That was a terrible dunk contest, and that highlight dunk
John
of
Wall
that
was
contest
good.
was terrible.
John Wall was good.
Him jumping
The
over the
format
mascot,
was
that was
bad.
a terrible
Okay.
dunk.
John
It was
Wall
the
should
best
be
dunk
better,
in that
but
contest, but it
How is
was
that
a terrible dunk.
How is that a terrible dunk?
It was not impressive whatsoever.
let's be
I've
honest.
seen
John
more.
Wall's
I know
athleticism
I can't
should
do
be
it before you go into that, Hayes. I can't do it. But looking at his athleticism, he could have done more. That was the best dunk of that contest, but that was a terrible contest.
It was a
Agreed.
terrible contest because of the format. Really, I thought the dunkers were good.
Nah, I don't. I disagree with that. It was just bad all the way around.
None of the
Yeah,
dunks were good.
I agree. I feel like the format didn't allow for really flashy dunks though, because nobody really like cared about winning it that much, because it wasn't that sole award for your accomplishment of winning it. It was a team effort. Nobody likes that,
Also,
especially
can
in the NBA.
we ban big men from the competition unless if they're like Dwight Howard level?
That needs to go
Yes.
away.
I mean, who was in it? Was it Plumlee?
It was Plumlee. That was the stupidest
Yeah.
thing I've ever seen.
Terrible. He had one decent dunk.
That was really stupid. There
And
was
then-
no point for Miles Plumlee to be in that contest.
I think the only reason he was in it was because he was leading the nets in dunks, but every one of his dunks were underneath the rim.
But yeah, as a big man, yeah. So I think Russell Westbrook would be really good in there. Paul
Oh, yeah.
George would be good.
Bring back Gerald Green. Who cares if he's like 33?
Yeah.
He can still get up.
Bring back Vince Carter.
Jason Richardson.
Oh gosh.
T-Mac.
So basically, let's just
Can he
flash
jump?
back like 10 years ago,
Bud Webb.
10, 15 years ago.
Nate.
Nate. The nostalgia.
Okay.
The nostalgia. But back to baseball.
Contest.
Back
Now
to
that was the
baseball for
topic
a
of the
second.
dunk contest. Who is your four competitors in their prime you would want to see in the dunk contest?
Well, is it limited to who actually competed, or like who we would want?
Let's go with who competed.
All
I
right.
would want Vince Carter, Jay Rich,
Okay,
And-
those are two good ones.
Michael Jordan.
Eh,
I think you got to put him in there. Michael Jordan. You got to put him in there.
Dominique
And
Wilkins.
there
Yeah.
you go.
Hey, that's what I was gonna say. All right, it's got to be Vince, Jay
Yeah.
Rich.
probably
Dominique.
Dominique. I think you could put Dr.
La-
J in there instead of
Dom-
MJ, but I don't know. Either or.
Gotta put-
Last
okay,
ones,
look.
there's so many you could put in that fourth.
Brent Barry.
What?
Brent Barry's the only white guy ever to win the dunk contest, and I'm not keeping
So
him.
to be politically correct nowadays, he would essentially have to be put in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring
gotcha.
back Chase Budinger.
Gotcha.
Put in Brent Barry. Give me
Vince-
me Dwight Howard for his ingenuity. Vince Carter. And then at the last point, I'm gonna take out Brent Barry. That was just a joke. Last two, Nate, and then
Really? I feel like you're leaving out some really good guys for Nate Robinson
so
and
much
Dwight
nostalgia.
Howard.
Nate and Dwight. That because those two going at it was the best. Okay, you know what? I'll take out Nate. Put in Andre Iguodala. He's incredibly underrated in the dunk contest. And then I guess Neek. So Neek, Iggy, Dwight, and
Right.
Vince.
I love how we end up talking about baseball finally, and it somehow still transitions to basketball.
Are none of us gonna add Dr. J into that?
Well, that was for me. It was
It wouldn't
Dr.
be
J
close.
/ MJ. For me, it was close.
I'm just saying I would want to see him in it. I'm not saying that he would be.
Throw in
That
Will.
was the right decision. I would just want to see it.
What about Levine? You think
No.
he could get there someday? I mean, he was only a rookie last year.
I just don't want to see it.
He was only a rookie last year.
He looked bored during that contest.
Like, he's unbelievably good. He is just ridiculously athletic.
Whatever. Anyway, back to baseball, the most glorious sport on this planet.
Yeah, what do you guys want to add anything else for that?
The AL just defeated the NL in the All-Star game 6-3, marking the third straight year that the AL has won. Their
15 Yeah, and it's the AL has beat the NL 15 to the last 19 All-Star games.
Hmm. Fun little bit of trivia here. Do you know who the last Brave to win the uh, All-Star Game MVP is?
It's probably not Chipper.
Is it Smoltzy?
Nope.
No,
Going too far.
it's not Andrew, is it? Andrew Jones?
Going too far. More recent than you'd think.
Wow. It's not Freeman.
Nope.
Trying to think.
Hmm.
I like how recent. Give like a time.
It was 5 years ago.
Oh.
He's a Yankee.
Oh.
It's
Prado.
not.
No. Prado's
Oh.
never been an All-Star.
Wait,
And
it's
he's a
not. It's
and he's
not
a
Jay
Marlin.
Hay, is it?
No. And Jay Hay's a Cardinal.
That's what I
I'm
thought.
just trying to think the.
Oh, it's McCann.
Yep.
Wow.
Bad, I'm
wow.
sorry.
McCann won the
Yeah.
won the All-Star MVP in 2010
I'm actually proud of myself because I'm not a huge baseball guy, but
I don't know why I didn't even think of McCann. I'm sorry. I should
because
be
you didn't
ashamed.
think of him winning the All-Star
I forgot
MVP.
whether.
Okay, I said Prado. Okay, that's
You did
pretty
say
bad.
Prado, and you thought he was on the Yankees when he's on the Marlins right now, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he was on the Yankees last year. I'm sorry.
Was he?
Yes.
I thought he
He
was on the
was. He
Dodgers
actually
last
was. I
year.
think
Yeah, he was on the
he
Yankees last year
was.
at one point.
Prado was a journeyman.
I apologize.
He was
for
good
that.
though.
I should be ashamed.
I
Yeah,
don't blame
I
him for
have a
knowing
I
who
have an
Martin
excuse
Prado
to
is
know
right
that.
now.
I still
Martin Prado's been on like 14 teams
True.
this year. He's the oh, who was it? Was it Eric Fournier who got traded all those times? Like
Luke Ridnour.
Luke Ridnour, that's who I was.
No, Luke Ridnour.
He's
Oh, I
the
thought we were talking about baseball. Yeah, Luke
yeah.
Ridnour.
That-
Uh,
Anyway,
so, how does that affect the World Series this year, Christopher?
the AL now has home field advantage during the World Series.
Yeah,
Thus,
I know.
that the Royals. I'm not even gonna say. I'm not even gonna finish that sentence. I was gonna say the Royals will have home field advantage, but I honestly don't see my Royals making it to the World Series again. Being brutally honest.
I'm holding out for a Red Sox comeback in the second half.
It's about that time, right?
Well, I don't know. Maybe
I don't know. I think they're like
Did they
22
win
games
2 or
back
3
right
years
now.
ago?
as
Did they
long
win
as
2 or 3 years ago?
as long as
They
Pablo
won
put
3.
as long as Pablo puts away the
No,
phone
2. It was 2.
Okay, next year.
with David Ortiz, man.
Yeah, they'll trade
His-
everybody they just signed. They'll dump everybody. Then apparently they'll be good again.
As long as Pablo Sandoval just stays off his cell phone, I mean, they should be good to go, right?
It's Nick. I'm just gonna say this. You're gonna see the Colts, and this just popped in my mind. You're gonna see the Colts in the Super Bowl this year. They're not gonna win. They'll be there. That's how the progression has gone. They missed the playoffs, went to the wild card, lost in the wild card, won the wild card, lost the next series, or
So you-
lost the next game, won that game, went to the championship, lost in the championship last year. They're gonna win the AFC championship this year. They're gonna lose in the Super Bowl this year. Then next year they're gonna win the Super Bowl.
So you're
It's just
saying they're kind of like the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I don't see that happening only because next year Andrew Luck gets his contract, and that means we lose. That's going to take up about 3/4 of our payroll.
They're still gonna make it.
The AFC is
It's-
really
We're
strong
going
it's
this year,
we're
though.
to lose half of our players
It's
and
progression of
all
life.
of our Pro
The
Bowls.
Colts are winning the
Hopefully.
Super Bowl next year. Well, not next year, the year after.
Well, that was supposed to be the same thing for the Oklahoma City Thunder, except that they ended up not even doing anything after they made the NBA
Because
Finals against the Heat. Yeah, so
Basketball is different than football, and I'm holding by my word
all right, there
because
is
that
no
is a
persuading you.
statement.
Yes,
There's no persuading you. Period.
physically, basketball is different than football. There is no debating that.
Anywho,
But there
why
is
is
some-
this so interesting?
There is some debating as to why sports are so enticing. So that's our off-topic discussion for this week, as if we haven't already gone off-topic enough for you. We're going to keep going off-topic, and we're going to ask, why are we so interested in sports?
Competition, basically. It's a much safer way of war. Uh,
So basically, we're wimps, and we don't want to go to war, so we'll...
Not at all.
To show our
No,
competitive
that's
nature,
not what
we'll
I'm
just
saying.
go watch sports? Is that what you're saying?
Not what I'm saying. It's it derives from an entertainment value. I mean, back in the day, people watched it for entertainment, as in like because they actually had high stakes back then. I mean, think back to that Aztecan game where I can't remember the exact name of it, but you got to kick a ball into a hoop that's on the side of the building, and then the losing team got sacrificed. So the stakes aren't as high as it were back then, but I mean, people like watching, knowing that, like they like watching competition, knowing that something's on the line. Now, I mean, you're not going to see the entire Indianapolis Colts get sacrificed. You're just going to see them be disappointed and not win the championship if they lose. That was just
We would have gotten to the Super Bowl if it wasn't for Deflategate.
Yeah, exactly.
no.
That was a joke. It was a joke.
Right, regardless.
We got beat like 49-7. It was good.
Chiefs are still better. Chiefs are still better than whoever would have won the Super Bowl. Just saying, they beat both of the teams.
With all of their wide receivers, you know.
Yeah, we got Jeremy Maclin. We'll be fine. Anyway, sports are entertaining just because it's a natural human instinct. They like to see.
Yeah.
They like to see things battle each other, and this is a way of battling without being too terribly harmful.
People like to have something to cheer for and have something to get excited about. I think that's what makes sports so entertaining, is that there's you just get a really good feeling when your team does well and when you're rooting on your team for them to do well, and people like that. I think that's one of the reasons that makes them so entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of different forms of entertainment and things you can cheer for, but I think the thing differentiating it from those things are the competitive nature that it brings out. I think, at least for me, I like sports because I'm very competitive. I don't like to lose at anything.
That applies to everybody. I don't think anybody likes to lose.
But there are people
the
who are
Sixers
more.
might.
There are people.
I don't think they like losing. They just understand that losing now means winning in the future.
There are people who like losing less. There are people who are more competitive than other people. So to me, I just like it because I'm very competitive. I like to see people battling against each other, and it's a real life soap opera to a certain degree. Like quoting Forrest Gump here, you never know what you're gonna get.
Exactly.
Sports are kind of like a box of chocolates, you know.
Exactly.
You quote Forrest Gump so much.
I do?
Jenny. But anyway,
yeah.
No, that was my first Forrest Gump
Another
quote.
reason people like sports is for the moment.
For the moment, yeah, that's true too.
People like sports because of the moments that happen. Like in baseball, the game-winning home run that it's not going to happen 9 out of 10 times, but that one time it does. It is the most glorious feeling ever. Or in basketball, the buzzer beater or the posterizing dunk. In football, the game-winning field goal, the game-winning touchdown. It's
drama.
Yeah,
it's flat out drama. There's no other way of putting it.
The payoff you get from watching, being a Georgia Tech fan, I know all about this. Being an Atlanta fan in general, having that hope built up, like, oh my goodness, this can actually happen, and then, well, being an Atlanta fan, I don't know what this is like, but actually seeing that happen.
And I love like the feelings of like seeing like an iconic moment happen in sports that like translates across everything.
Yep.
Well, being able to witness that, being able to say, yeah, I was watching that game live when this guy made that crazy catch or this guy took that crazy shot to win it. Like, I was alive. I was watching that game. That's one of the things you can kind of tell people about. Not everybody's going to have that experience.
Well, it's personable. It's something that goes across different spectrums. There's history involved. There's competitiveness involved. There's drama involved. There's the spur of the moment, the emotions, really any facet of life in sports is pretty much intertwined into it, and that's why I think you get so involved with it. You're emotionally tied to different teams, to different people, to different players. You're rooting for them. You're totally vested into what they're trying to do.
Going back to the biggest moments thing for a second, what is the biggest moment in sports you have ever seen, you think? Like on the field, not necessarily off the field, like there are big moments off the field, but like the most impactful thing you have seen live.
Well,
Not
how about
necessarily at the game, but like watching it.
well? Let's say not at a game and at a game. So we'll
I'd say,
start not at a game first.
oh,
Well, like actually physically at the game, I haven't seen. I would not
Yeah, I
say
don't
I've
think any
seen
of us
any.
have really seen like iconic moments at a game, unless
Iconic.
at,
I mean, we all
at a
went,
game live or just watching the game in general.
watched like in general. You watched it as it happened. Doesn't matter where you are.
Ray Allen's shot to keep the Heat in the finals. That
That's a
was
good.
incredibly
that's
iconic.
different.
I would. Um, let's see. What else was?
I'm gonna go into baseball, but David Freese's home run in Game 6 to keep the Cardinals in the World Series against the Rangers. That walk-off home run was the single most crazy thing I've ever seen watching a sport.
I mean,
The best World Series moments ever.
I would kind of go out, kind of like out of the norm, but the Triple Crown was kind of a big deal. I watched that live.
That's true. I forgot about that one.
Okay, I was thinking
That's-
baseball Triple Crown. I was thinking Miguel Cabrera.
And I'm most proud. I was watching the game live at the Mouse at the Palace. I wasn't there, obviously, but I mean, I was watching the game on TV live. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, Ray Allen's three was, for me, that was a big one, especially since I'm a Heat fan. That's a big one. Other
And
than
I don't
that,
fault
Same.
I don't fault you for that at all.
other than that,
That is one of the best NBA Finals moments of all time.
I mean, other than that, I'll never forget Florida State winning the championship
But that's not
2 years
impactful.
ago. I know that's not impactful
How
for
about
anybody else other than me.
I don't know.
But-
I don't know if you guys would consider this one. Is Mayweather's win over Pacquiao just a Mayweather Pacquiao fight in general?
That was a dud. That wasn't an impact.
It could have
I mean,
been.
it was a dud. But how many people are going to say, "Oh, I got to see the Mayweather Pacquiao fight," even if it did suck?
I will say this, another moment. Now I'm gonna forget. I'm pretty okay. I remember now. Alabama lining up to kick that long field goal against Auburn.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Oh my
Auburn
God.
turning
Yeah.
it all the way.
I was watching that too. That was
It
I actually
frustrates
wouldn't-
me so much because I was at my cousin's house watching the game, and it was right after Thanksgiving, obviously, and so I had to go back home, and it was kind of late by then. So I was on the way driving home, and I saw on my phone an alert that Alabama was kicking a field goal to win the game from whatever 59 yards or so, 60 yards. Then all of a sudden, I just see my phone. It says Auburn won. I was like, "What? What? What just happened? What? Like, are you kidding me?" So I called my cousin, and like, they were just going crazy. I was like, "Wow, I just missed like the craziest moment in sports." Yeah, it was very disappointing.
I was almost in the same boat as you, except that I wouldn't have even been watching the game, but we had friends over that night who wanted to watch it. Just to turn on and see what the score was, and we turned it on. We had it on in kind of the background, and then all of a sudden we're watching it, and there's that play to win the game, and we're like, this is crazy. And then he missed, and we're just, this is crazy. How is this happening? Can't believe this. Like that definitely was a crazy moment as well.
I just thought of another moment that I was watching. It was one of the first Super Bowls I actually watched the whole thing of, but Santonio Holmes' catch
Yeah,
in
that's-
in
oh,
overtime
That's
for the
what I was
Steelers.
That's what I was about to say as well. Yep.
Yeah.
I lived in Ireland when that Super Bowl was played, so I didn't get to see that. But yeah, I know the catch, and that was also another crazy moment.
Okay, I just thought of one that I saw live, like actually at the stadium. Now, this may not be impactful for everybody in the United States, but in Georgia at least, when, oh my goodness, when Georgia Tech beat Georgia this year, that was the best moment I've seen live. Impactful for the state of Georgia only, though. Get that? I understand all the listeners outside don't understand the rivalry, but being in Sanford Stadium, or however you pronounce it, I really don't care. It's Georgia. Um, being one of the, I'd say about a couple thousand Tech fans in there, maybe if that, just hearing the silence after Georgia Tech picked the ball off to seal the game in overtime or double overtime or whatever it was the single greatest moment I was actually alive. I mean, not alive, actually at the live event for.
I think another one we've forgotten as well is the Patriots Giants Super Bowl
Oh wow.
The
where
David
the
Tyree
Helmet
helmet
David
catch.
Tyree helmet catch.
I was trying to think something with the Patriots, and I'm like, I know we're forgetting something with the Patriots, but I can't put my finger on what it was.
That one was incredible to me because although I was a Dolphins fan at the time and everybody in my family was like, "Why are you rooting for the Patriots?" I was like, "Well, I want to see them go undefeated. I mean, I want to see history."
I don't want to
And
see them
And
cheat to it though.
you could also say for the Patriots, like Adam Vinatieri's game-winning field goal against the Panthers,
yeah,
win the
but
Super Bowl.
I don't feel like that's quite as big though
No,
as
I'm
the
not saying, but
David
that's
Tyree,
pretty.
but
But a
yeah,
Super Bowl would come down to that.
yeah. Well, what about at the
What about
event? I know. Christopher said the Georgia Tech, but have you guys had any other at the event where you thought that was really, at least for your own personal interest, was the biggest one you've seen?
hmm, I guess I don't know an iconic moment, but it's not really anything that was super impactful. Was I got to witness the first goal ever scored by this hockey player, Evgeny Kuznetsov. I was at the Capitals game when he scored his first ever goal, and he could be very good in the future. So it's kind of cool to say that I saw his first ever goal.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't have a lot. I mean, honestly, my biggest is probably, at least my favorite has been last year Clemson against Florida State when Jameis Winston was out on the sidelines. So I went to that game, and when it went to overtime, and Eddie Goldman stripped the Clemson running back just before regulation ended, when they're basically in field goal range, ready to win the game. Then went to overtime, and Carlos Williams ended up running it in for the score, right on the opposite side of the field that I was sitting. So he ran it into the left side of the end zone, and I was on the right side of that end zone. So I could see. I just saw the wide open field. I was like, "That's game, baby." So that was a really cool. That was a really cool moment. I mean, walking out of that stadium, I mean, everybody was just doing the tomahawk chop, the war chant, all that good stuff. That was cool.
Um, I just thought of one, and I'm sorry to say this, Nick, but when the Saints
No, don't say
did
it.
the onside kick
No,
to
don't say it.
start the half in
Oh
their
my
Super
god, I
Bowl
hated
against
Oh,
the
that play
Colts.
call.
I can live with the onside kick. Just don't bring up Tracy Porter.
I was about to say,
Just
yeah.
don't bring
And
up
Tracy
Tracy
Porter.
Nick, did you
I
see?
got here. Here's one. Oh, I
One of
was
my
gonna
thing was the Colts comeback on the Patriots in the AFC Championship game.
Oh,
06.
that was awesome. That was awesome.
They were down
Um,
21-3 at half,
Mhm.
that was awesome.
and the go-ahead touchdown was a play where they threw it to their offensive guard, Dan Klecko. That was awesome.
Yeah.
I can give you two, but you guys are not. You guys probably won't understand them. Two ones from soccer was my favorite team. And my favorite team, we were primed, and when I say primed, I mean we were in pole position to win the cup, and in soccer they do it a little bit differently. They kind of do it the same way the NHL does, where if you win a game, you get 3 points. If you draw a game, you get 1.0 for a loss.
Yeah, I understand.
Team with the most points at the end of the season wins the cup. So there's no playoffs, no anything like that. So pretty much every game matters. And my team, we were, I think, 5 points, I want to say, ahead of the second place team, which was Manchester City. And we had 2 back-to-back games. We had a game where we were up 3-0 on a lower level team, a team in the bottom half of the table. And they came back and tied us 3-3 in like the last few seconds. I was watching that game live, and I'm just pulling my hair out. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Literally, they went from the 88th or something like that to the 90th minute, scored 3 goals, and tied the game. And then probably the most iconic one, and people who are fans of other teams still make fun of us for this one, is they call it Slippy G, where our captain of our team, had the ball in our own half of it, and he slipped with the ball at his feet, fell over. The striker from the other team runs up, takes the ball, goes down, scores, and they win. That was their first goal in a 2-0 game, and we needed both of those games to seal our fate, to win the cup, and we didn't win either of them, and that was what many people think contributed to us losing the cup that season.
No,
and
what's your favorite team?
Liverpool.
Oh,
we finished second. We finished second in the league that season. We should have been first.
Speaking of soccer, an iconic moment we forgot was Bruni Chastain's goal in the World Cup.
Yeah, but I didn't watch that.
yeah,
so.
same.
Zinedine Zidane's headbutt as well was pretty iconic.
Apparently, I saw it.
How about Tim Howard's performance?
That's not
Remember
iconic.
That? I know, but everybody made a big deal out of that, and I saw that. That's the first thing that came to mind in soccer.
That was pretty good, but I don't know.
They still lost.
Yeah, but that was against wasn't it Belgium, right?
I have no idea.
I
have no earthly idea.
Belgium. I think it was Belgium that they were playing. Yeah, no, I get you. That was pretty iconic in terms of like the United States.
Yeah.
But
is there one that we can agree on that has been the most iconic since at least we've been watching sports?
Oh,
I would say it had to be. I mean, from a baseball standpoint, David Freese's home run.
No,
you think so? I think it was.
Ray Allen's shot.
I'm saying for baseball, David Freese.
Well, I'm talking like sports in general.
Oh, okay. I see what
it has to be the Triple Crown, you would think. It's something that hasn't happened since
'78. I mean, a lot of people care about.
I understand
that's my point of view.
But still,
I'll agree with Nick. I think the Triple Crown is
when you look at sports in general,
in history, sports in general, that was the biggest thing to happen in the last 40 years.
But that's a boring answer. Let's put it that way.
Let's
go. Does it actually matter?
I mean, unless you want to like kind of make it where it's just major sports, then like baseball, football, basketball, and soccer, leave it at that. Then say it. That's one thing.
I think I might say Tyree's catch might go over Ray Allen's though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, because at that point the Patriots lost their perfect season.
I would say it's either Tyree's catch or the Iron Bowl, one or the other.
But I feel like the Iron Bowl.
Oh.
At least the Iron Bowl wasn't like the national championship.
National championship. That's true.
But it was fighting spot. Like whoever won that game was going to the national championship, pretty much.
Yeah, that's true. But
I still put Tyree's catch over that. That's for football. For baseball, David Freese's home run. Basketball, Ray Allen's shot, no doubt.
Yeah.
For at least for what we've seen. If it's all time, then it's Jordan's shot on the shot. That's what it's known as, the shot on was that the Cavaliers? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was on Price.
Yeah, where he kicks up.
Yeah.
And then wrestling, not that anybody cares about it, but it's when Mick Foley went off the cage. Anyway.
So college football is the Iron Bowl. What about soccer?
Soccer? Oh my God. I would say Zinedine Zidane's. If I was gonna pick one, it would be Zinedine Zidane's headbutt on God, I can't remember his name, the guy from Italy. That was so impactful because he's considered one of the greats of all time, and that headbutt just marred what had been an amazing career for him, and really just put a damper on his career. And he's still remembered for that, and he really doomed his team. They could, for all he knows, they could have gone on to win that World Cup, but he ended up getting red carded, sent off, never to play in that game again. So you don't know what could have been.
It's really
I think
not
that
a
was
nice,
very iconic.
I think the most iconic moment
in
in soccer that I've seen, at least, is Zlatan Ibrahimovic's entire career thus far.
Oh man, Ibrahimovic.
That's a joke for Ben.
Have you ever seen did you ever see his goal against England? His bicycle kick from 60 meters out. It was insane.
Dude, I
Go
love
look that up
Zlatan.
on YouTube.
Zlatan is my favorite soccer player. Just not for his performance. I know he's a great soccer player, but for his interactions off the pitch.
Oh, here's a fun story for you. RC Wenger, who's the manager for Arsenal, he offered him a trial when he was like 16 or 18 or something like that.
Mhm.
And or basically he was like, "All right, we want to sign you, but we want you to play a trial game." And he said to him, "Zlatan doesn't do auditions."
Yeah,
And then
I love that
was it.
story.
That was the end of it.
I love
was-
that story so much. Even though I'm an Arsenal fan, somewhat, I love that story. Just if you want entertainment, just look up Zlatan Ibrahimovic's just anything he does off the pitch.
Hey, you mind spelling that for me? Is it like ZCHHHL?
I'll type it in the chat.
CLA. No. Or look up Mario Balotelli. The guy's nuts too.
I like
he
him.
Set off
I like
fireworks in his own house.
I like
dude,
him.
He does.
He's one of the few soccer players I actually do know. But we're also forgetting about golf.
That should be close to it. I didn't look it up.
Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods.
I mean, it's got to be Tiger Woods U.S. Open, right?
2008 U.S. Open.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean
That would be mine.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Yeah,
just
we're staying away from off the field situations.
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, it depends. We'll see if Jordan Spieth somehow manages to get the Grand Slam, which I'm not saying he will. I don't think he will.
No.
That would be the biggest.
It'll
But
be something if he wins the Open this week. I mean, it'll be insane just to get to.
How about Bubba Watson winning the Masters? How impactful was that?
No.
nah, it was
No.
it. I think the one biggest was definitely Tigers 2008.
Yeah, I know.
US Open.
Yeah.
Tennis.
Like that iconic moment was that chip in.
That's true. The Masters chip in. I
Yeah.
didn't think about that, but I still got to go with the. I
No,
think the
I
08
know. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing out iconic Tiger moments.
Yeah.
I've seen.
Yeah.
The fist pump.
What about tennis? Can you think of?
Um,
Well, Serena's playing pretty well right now.
I
that's not-
don't.
that's-
That's no.
Let's leave women out
Throw
of
that
this.
in there because that's the only tennis player you know.
Didn't Andy Murray win whatever is the big thing in his home country?
Wimbledon
That was
or the
Wimbledon is not
Olympics?
Oh, yeah, Andy
Talking about the
Murray is-
Olympics?
What? No, Hayes.
Are you talking about Andy Murray winning the Olympics?
I don't know. Did I cut out there?
No.
No,
No.
you're just like you just kind of stopped.
Oh,
I was saying. I basically said let's just stay out of tennis before we offend anybody.
Yeah. Well,
We
I
don't
already
know
said let's leave
about-
women out of this. So I think we've already talked. about
Ooh.
That probably wasn't a smart move. We
hey,
don't.
we've talked about worse things on this podcast.
Have we?
No.
Yeah,
No,
well,
we haven't
yeah.
talked about worse things on this podcast.
Well, we have talked about Florida State for a few weeks in a row, a few months in a row now.
No, but I can't remember what it was now. But there was
There was
the one.
nothing. There was we didn't talk about anything.
Yeah, but if there's anybody listening to this point that heard me say that, props to them.
He doesn't
Oh,
mean it.
there's a-
We seem to say that
I've
at
got-
the end of every podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've got
everybody
one
says
more-
it at
I've
the end
got
of every
one more-
podcast.
I've got one more crazy moment, and it's from hockey.
All right, then we'll
that
we'll wrap
I've-
this
that-
up.
That I've seen. It was back in I think 2010 in Vancouver for the Olympics, where it was Canada USA in the final in the final of the Olympics, and Canada went up 1-0. It was 1-0 throughout like the whole game, and with like something like 3.1 seconds left on the clock in the third period, the USA scored a goal to tie it 1-1. It was crazy. It was crazy. That was one of the craziest moments I've ever seen in hockey. And then Canada went on to win that game, but still.
Last question. No debate about it. No, because we got to wrap up here. The greatest sports moment of all time, in your guys' opinion?
Ooh.
For me, it's the Miracle on Ice, hands down. Hands down. Miracle on Ice.
Oh,
Nothing will beat that.
That's what I was going to say. You can't really beat that.
I guess I can't disagree. Nothing pops up into my mind.
I mean, Muhammad Ali against Frazier comes to mind.
That doesn't
Frazier. Down goes Frazier.
Yeah,
but Miracle on Ice for me is number one.
I almost wanted to say for a second Larry Bird's
at least American sports
against the Pistons. That was iconic. It's a steal by Bird.
Yeah, but not
not
like all time
on ice.
What about the catch for the 49ers? That was pretty iconic. And the drive.
Yeah, but you can't beat the Miracle on Ice.
I'm not saying maybe all of American sports. But if you're talking about, definitely, I'd agree that definitely Miracle on Ice as a hockey fan, I would agree. Miracle on Ice is probably the greatest sports moment ever, just because
in American history at least.
Yeah,
just because of how nobody expected the USA to win that game.
Everybody expected that it was during the Cold War too. Or I don't know if it was. Was it? I'm sorry. I might have just said something.
It was right. It was in that era. It was right after
Russia. Russia and the U.S. were not on common terms. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can agree with that. I have no qualms with saying Miracle on Ice. I'm good with that. So we're gonna agree Miracle on Ice is the best of all time, and then we still haven't agreed for what our era though is our favorite from this era.
And we probably never will.
Kind of like this whole podcast where we seem to agree to disagree on everything.
I feel it's just because Christopher disagrees with everything anyone else
Hayes
says.
has a different opinion than everybody else, and he's always wrong. Okay, that's the end of the podcast.
We all agreed on the home run derby, though.
Okay. Well,
I didn't watch the home run derby, so I can't really agree or disagree.
I feel like a lot of people didn't, which is sad for baseball.
I'm not hugely into baseball, so that's the one sport I don't follow all that much.
It's sad for baseball standards, but it's going downhill fast, kind of like this podcast. So
whoa! I think you guys cut out. What was that about baseball?
Oh, nothing. We're just gonna move on before we get
baseball is the greatest sport known to mankind. I will not have any of you say otherwise. Maybe soccer if you're from a different country, but
baseball is America's pastime. It really doesn't beat that for America. So.
Yeah, but they don't have America's team in it.
Well, let's just say this. We will agree to disagree once again, and that's how we're going to end our podcast tonight. Take it easy, guys.